Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with realtor, investor, and entrepreneur Karl Schnitzer. He is a passionate Nelson Nash Institute authorized infinite banking practitioner from Philadelphia. While patrolling the streets of Philadelphia as a police officer, he learned how to invest in real estate and simultaneously flipped homes and built a rental portfolio. Real estate investing led Karl to the infinite banking concept, where he discovered how to build a family banking system and leverage life insurance to acquire more assets. Enjoy this interview.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I look forward to it. I checked out your YouTube page, and it seems like a really cool show.
Oh, cool, man. Thank you. Yeah. So before we get into your life and what you do, and what makes you motivated to do exactly what you do, I want to begin with what we've gone through over the last couple of years plus with COVID. It really changed the way that things have worked in so many ways. And I'm curious how you survived that time period and how it's changed the way that you live your life and conduct business now.
Sure. So at the start of COVID, I was actually still a cop. I was a cop in Philadelphia, and when COVID started in about March, we had all kinds of just crazy rules and regulations, and that kind of interfered with business a little bit. But I think, as a terrible time as COVID was, I think it also created a ton of opportunity, and it made, myself and other businesses and investors kind of explore different options. I mean, how many businesses did we see basically go virtual and cut an entire expense of rent or, a building expense out of their budget? So I think it kind of gave people an opportunity to look at, maybe some things that they thought were necessities, and it turns out they weren't, and they may even be more productive, having employees work at home. And I'm sure a lot of people would feel similar about that.
Yeah, you had to have had a very unique perspective as an officer with everything that was going on. There were so many things that got magnified. It's like COVID just kind of was the match that struck a lot of things that I think just kind of ignited with things that were happening. So, how did you maintain your mental stability and health? I mean, did it take a toll because of everything that was going on with law enforcement, or was it kind of business as usual?
No, it definitely wasn't business as usual. There was a lot more going on, and a lot more. So in my department specifically, we even had some different rules and, kind of adjusted where we did not, and I say we as in, the city officials and the upper leadership that came out with the rules, but there was certain, kind of low level crimes that they did not want us arresting people. They didn't want people in small, cell rooms, and we already have a crowded prison system, so they didn't want more people in there during all that. So the city officials, where I'm at, they kind of pivoted a little bit, and some more nonviolent offenses they weren't necessarily actually taking you into the prison system for, which was good and bad. I can understand both sides of it.
So let me just get a complete handle on exactly what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the kids will look up at you and say, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So as of right now, what I do, I'm a realtor in Philadelphia, and on top of real estate, I work for a firm that helps business owners and investors basically create a system that allows you to warehouse your capital inside of an account. And the attractive part about this, specific type of account is that it can be leveraged and used to go acquire more assets to, build up whether your business or your investment portfolio, things like that. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, no. I was just going to say, when you were in the third grade, what was your dream to be when you grew up?
My dream all growing up was to be a Marine. And I tried the military twice, and both times I was disqualified during the recruiting process, because both times I had failed the vision test and applied for waivers, and waivers were denied. And, that kind of, set me back a little bit. And that's where I stumbled on law enforcement, where I was a police officer for 2 years before getting into what I'm doing now. I'm sorry, 4 years, if I didn't say that.
When I was a kid, I was a part of the 80s kids, and I grew up watching Chips, and I thought I wanted to be a cop when I grew up. So just to put things in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. So when I started as a cop, I didn't really have the experience like a lot of cops did of, hey, it was never like this in the 2000s or 90s or 80s even. When I started as a cop, there was a stigma against cops, and unfortunately I never had the experience when people actually respected the cops. There is, don't get me wrong, there's still people that respect cops, but there's also, a stigma and a large group of people that do not. So I was kind of only ever saw the one side of that.
It's interesting. Philly seems to be going through kind of a renaissance like Kansas City. You guys are up for potentially going to the Super Bowl. You have good teams. You guys went to the World Series. It has to be pretty euphoric there sports-wise.
Oh, yeah. I was a cop during the World Series parade, or not the World Series, the Super Bowl parade. So I was on the inside of the parade line, and I had all the players, around me and saw some really cool stuff. It was fun and it was cool. It was a really cool experience doing that. But Philly is, like you said, Philly is rough. I mean, right now it's just crazy.
The one thing about Philly that I don't know if it's 100% true, you hear rumors and all this, it's one of the very few stadiums in the NFL that actually has a jail in it. Is that true?
That I don't know. I want to say no, because I've worked as a police officer at Eagles games, and I have never seen a jail. I mean, I've been back in, I've been back in the, like non-public parts of stadiums and through the police entrance and everything, and I've never seen a jail cell there. They probably have a room and an office, but no actual cell that I know of.
Okay, all right. Well, you know how those things start. It's kind of that tomato can thing where it kind of spreads down the line there. So, so I'm curious. All of us, in whatever we do, are motivated by those around us that are inspirational. Who's been a hero or a role model for you in your life?
Oh man, it's hard to pick one. There's been a couple. So I would say my dad kind of sparked my real estate, passion. When I graduated the police academy, I had my first real paycheck and wanting to buy a house. He gave me the thought of, hey, why buy a house, buy a duplex? You're a young single guy. You don't need a lot of space. Start collecting rent from someone else, and, it'll cover part of your mortgage, if not all of it. So that right there just sparked my real estate passion. And when I did that, so I bought my first duplex at 22. I lived on the first floor, I rented out the top floor, and just collecting that, first rent check when, I didn't really do anything, you call passive income, that kind of sparked everything of, okay, this is pretty cool. I kind of dug into real estate a lot deeper. Then I started with just learning, once I kind of had that real estate bug, then there was a couple, mentors and people that inspired me inside of real estate. The owner of my insurance firm that I work at, he, is very heavily invested in real estate. He's, been a big mentor to me. And, I've been a part of, as a GP and an LP position, over 50 deals now inside of real estate between flips and rental properties. And, there's a couple people specifically that have kind of sparked that real estate passion.
So I'm curious. So sometimes I like to ask people if they could meet anybody on the planet that's alive, who would you meet? But in your capacity, I would imagine you've met some pretty interesting people. Who's been somebody that you were kind of awestruck by that maybe you met, or maybe even if there's somebody that's alive on the planet right now you'd like to meet? Either way on that one. So somebody I haven't met yet, or somebody I'd like to meet again? Maybe that. Maybe somebody you'd like to meet again.
So I don't know if you follow. He's a pretty big on social media. I follow Grant Cardone, and I looked up to him for I don't know, several years now, and he's very, very driven and outspoken, but he has just accomplished so much. And I've been to several of his events. I've, talked very, very briefly to him. Never really a one-on-one conversation, but he's definitely somebody that I've looked up to and would love to, meet further.
So in your capacity of, law enforcement, real estate, you're obviously very highly driven and giving of yourself. How did these seeds begin for you growing up? Kind of talk to me a little bit about your childhood. And, all of these things start at childhood. What kind of happened to get you where you're at today?
So I'd say my parents had a, big influence just on my work ethic and, how driven I am, where, we didn't grow up, we didn't grow up poor and we didn't grow up rich. We were just, your average middle-class family, went to Catholic school. And I kind of, like I said before, I always thought I was going to be a career Marine and, go into the Marine Corps and do that for 20 some years. And when that when that door shut, it's funny too now, because I look back at that and I know why the Lord didn't want me, going into the military now. But I would say, I kind of had a drive to serve people, which is kind of then where I kind of had a decision. Well, okay, if I couldn't go in the military, how could I still have that paramilitary experience? And that's where I kind of settled on the police department, which it was fun. And, I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people, and it wasn't for me though. And that's where, I think the Lord, gave me that opportunity, because I was struggling a little bit when the military didn't work out. And then he, I truly believe he, gave me a taste of the paramilitary in the police department so that I could have, tasted that and realize, okay, that life's not for me either. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. I just had kind of bigger and more desire to build wealth and build a legacy really for my name. And that's kind of, I guess it would go back to just how my parents kind of raised me with work ethic and just drive.
So when you get to the end of a day, what is it? What is it about a day that you quantify as a good one?
I like to talk to people, and I like to teach these strategies that we use. If anyone is not familiar, we help and coach people implement the infinite banking strategy, which was, it first came out there's a book called Becoming Your Own Banker by a guy named R. Nelson Nash. And he basically he was a lifelong insurance salesperson and understood life insurance very, very well. And he basically learned the banking process at the same time. And he learned how we can actually use life insurance policies to basically build our own banking processes on a personal level where we don't need to include the central banks and everything that brings, and as well as Wall Street. So I really feel, a deep calling right now that this is where I'm meant to be, and, teaching this strategy and designing these policies for families and business owners and investors. The more people that I can help kind of break away from the central banks and Wall Street corruption, the happier I am. So if I can, have a call, several calls a day and, help families and, accomplish this, that's a good day to me.
So if you have a dream tonight and you run into the younger version of yourself, say in your 20s, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained, the life that you've lived so far, what would you tell that version of you?
I've never thought about that before. I would, obviously I wish I started my policies earlier in life. They grow and compound just like anything. So obviously time is on your side for that. So if I could have go back, I would have started that earlier. But I don't know if I would do anything different. Even as much as I love real estate and the insurance stuff that I'm in now, I really enjoy the experience, and I've learned and grown a lot from having been a police officer and seeing just, everything that I have. It's kind of, they say the police officer is the only job where you can do three things, which is save a life, give a life, or take a life. Military and fire, they have parts of that. Fire can save a life or give a life if they, deliver a baby, but they can't legally take a life. Police officer is the only profession where you can do 3. And then, some parts of military professions. I've never done, one of them, but you see stuff that not people see every day. And where I specifically was, you can see true poverty. If people think they're struggling or, maybe things are bad, I can assure you it can always be worse. If you take a drive through some of the areas I've been in and seen some of the things that I have, trust me, it can always be worse. But it was cool. I met so many great people, both cops and just people on the street that I had encounters with. And
so everyone out there has a perception of you. You have different roles, in business and as an officer and just in your personal life, family, friends, clients, colleagues. But you run your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So I had like an identity shift probably within a year ago. When I left the police department, I identified as, look, I'm a full-time real estate investor. That's my goal. I want, 100 rental units, and that's what I wanted to be. I then got close to that number and realized I hated it, and I did not want to be a real estate investor. I love real estate as an asset class. Don't get me wrong. However, I did not like being an operator and being the one out there looking for deals, running from different project to project, securing the debt. It just was not, what I wanted. And I struggled for a little bit where I left the police department to be a real estate investor full time, flip houses, buy rental properties, do that whole thing. And I ended up hating it. And, I read and I have so many mentors and groups that I'm in of, people that are that and, how much they can, build through that path. And I had a mentor say to me, you don't have to identify as that, but you can still obviously invest in that asset class. So I would say right now, I'm you could call it an entrepreneur. I don't have many businesses, but, what I do now is help people. I really, really enjoy and love helping business owners and seeing their success after we implement these strategies and these policies, and teaching them and coaching them, how to use them to, whether it's, grow their business or acquire more assets, or, you can even use them to, finance liabilities. And it's in a more efficient way than paying cash or going to the bank and financing liabilities.
So, Karl, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you and your services, anything involving you and your world, where do they go?
Our website is producerswealth.com. From there, there's all my contact info is on there. You can reach out to me. I also have another link called schedulewithkarl.com. That's Karl with a K. That takes you right to a scheduling link for any kind of consultation or strategy call.
Perfect, Karl. Hey, thank you for opening up, man. Thank you for explaining your life, and there's very interesting stories. So I appreciate you opening up. Have a great New Year, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, business, literature, spirituality, music, and much more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube or at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.